Evolutionists must believe in miracles, even though they might protest that they don't. Let's find a definition of a miracle. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, a miracle is an extraordinary and astonishing happening that is attributed to the presence and action of some ultimate or divine power. Now, evolutionist Dawkins says he don't like miracles. I'm not attacking any particular version of God or gods. I'm attacking God, all gods, anything and everything supernatural. But he and all other evolutionists must believe in miracles. Let's take a look at some examples. For instance, number one, the entire universe evolved by itself from literally nothing. That is a statement made by Guth and Steinhardt in the Inflationary Universe article in the Scientific American.
Now, it is very mysterious how the universe came into being. It's a deeply mysterious and interesting question.
And can I just interrupt? It's an old question, a very old question. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century was asking this same question. He said there must have been a time when no physical things existed, but something can't come from nothing. That was his view. It's just been repeated by us.
Something can come from nothing, and that's what physicists are now telling us. I could give you, you asked me to give you a layman's interpretation. It would be a very, very layman's interpretation. When you have matter and antimatter and you put them together, they cancel each other out and give rise to nothing. What Lawrence Krauss is now suggesting is that if you start with nothing, the process can go into reverse and produce matter and antimatter. The theory is still being worked out.
Well, there are many troubles with Richard's teachings, but a fundamental one is that he dumbs down God and he soups up nothing.
You can quickly respond to that.
You can dispute exactly what's meant by nothing, but whatever it is, it's very, very simple. And why is that funny?
Well, I think it's a bit funny to be trying to define nothing.
Miracle number two, universal laws of physics and chemistry and biology. The fact that there are rules at all is a kind of miracle. So says Richard Feynman in his book, The Meaning of It All. Miracle number three, universal fine-tuning. Life as we know it would be impossible if any one of several physical qualities had slightly different values. So says Stephen Weinberg in an article again in the Scientific American. The really amazing thing is not that life on Earth is balanced on a knife edge, but that the entire universe is balanced on a knife edge. The entire universe seems unreasonably suited to the existence of life, almost contrived. You might say a put-up job. So says Paul Davies in a BBC Horizon documentary. Miracle number four, carbon. Carbon is the key component for all life on Earth, but its formation baffles scientists. Some super-calculating intellect must have designed the properties of the carbon atom. A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics. So says Fred Hoyle in his annual review of astronomy and astrophysics. A miracle needs a miracle worker. Miracle number 5, life. Countless chemical materials were synthesized and accumulated in such a way that they constituted, as it were, a primeval soup. In this primeval soup, by infinite variations of lifeless growth and decay of substances during some billions of years, the way of life was ultimately reached. So is the article in the Journal of Geology, volume 69, page 458. An imaginary idea of the origin of life. But look, a miracle needs a miracle worker. Miracle number 6, reproduction. Anybody who looks at living organisms knows perfectly well that they can produce other organisms like themselves. That they should occur in the world at all is a miracle of the first magnitude. The only thing which removes or mitigates this miracle is that they reproduce themselves. An interesting statement by John von Neumann. A miracle needs a miracle worker. Evolutionism cannot account for the complex reproduction process possessed by living creatures, which always only reproduce their own kind. Miracle number 7, DNA. DNA is chemical language information instructing each cell of every organism. Language information requires a mind and an intelligence. It's a miracle. A miracle needs a miracle worker. The secret of DNA's success is that it carries information like that of a computer program, but far more advanced, since experience shows that intelligence is the only presently acting cause of information. We can infer that intelligence is the best explanation for the information in DNA. So says Jonathan Wells. DNA is needed in order to make proteins, the building blocks of life. But it's also the case that proteins are needed in order to make DNA. So what can we say? There is no natural process by which proteins or DNA could have appeared independently. A miracle needs a miracle worker. Miracle number 8, many kinds of creatures. Natural selection, which is survival of the fittest, acting on mutations. Mutations are replication defects. These cannot change fish into reptiles or reptiles into mammals. Genetics might be adequate for explaining microevolution. That's the variation in species. But microevolutionary changes in gene frequency were not seen as able to turn a reptile into a mammal or to convert a fish into an amphibian. So reads an article by Scott Gilbert and John Opitz and Rudolf Raff. A miracle needs a miracle worker.
Can you give an example of a genetic mutation or an evolutionary process which can be seen to increase the information in the genome?
Can you just stop one? I think.
Miracle number 9, enzymes. Enzymes are specially shaped protein catalysts which enable the digestion of food. Enzymes work in seconds on molecules that would naturally take years to break down. A miracle needs a miracle worker. Miracle number 10, interdependence in nature. Every third mouthful relies on pollination. Plants and animals working together is one example of how all living things must have appeared simultaneously and rapidly together.
And it's this process of pollination that's the next key to why the arthropods are pivotal to human success and to our very own food chain. As much as 35% of all human food is dependent on pollination by arthropods. Across the world, the value of crops pollinated by insects is over £120 billion a year. Without them, we wouldn't have apples, almonds, cherries, oranges, tomatoes or squash on our supermarket shelves. 84% of crop species grown in Europe still depend on insect pollination. Without insects, our crops would flounder, supermarket stocks would plummet, and life on Earth would irreversibly suffer.
In one of the Encyclopedia Britannica lessons entitled The Living World, we read that all living things depend on each other and on non-living things. This interdependence maintains the balance in nature. Living things are not only interdependent, but also keep each other under control. All living things are made up of cells, numerous types of cells in the living organism. All the organelles in each cell are interdependent. Miracle, it needs a miracle worker. The speaker in the 2018 Royal Institution lecture imagines evolution as, she refers to it as magic. What? Well, Royal Institution lectures really ought to be about factual science and not fatuous imaginary magic. She imagines that mutational variations, which of course, as we've said, are just replication defects. She imagines magically that they can produce new types of living creatures. The most prominent atheist of the 20th century, Anthony Flew, concluded towards the end of his life that a god must have designed the universe. It was shocking news and made international headlines. Flew came to believe that the extraordinarily complex genetic code in DNA simply could not be accounted for naturalistically. It didn't make logical sense to him that it had happened merely by chance, by random mutations. Miracles, what they are, why they happen, and how they can change your life. In conclusion, let us just simply say, evolutionism, if it were true, would require a huge number of miracles. proponents never allow for a miracle worker. On the biblical account of creation does involve miracles, but they are performed by a transcendent miracle worker.